Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production. Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 95. What's needed in iWork still? This podcast is sponsored by Gadget Freeway. Check out all of their gadgets and accessories over at gadgetfreeway.com. I'd like to thank them once again for the support of this podcast. Check out all their custom-made iPad pillows, iPad case bags, and all their other great gadgets for your iPad at gadgetfreeway.com. Well, welcome. This is Sunday night, the live show of the iPad Possibilities Podcast, and we've arrived at episode 95. We're getting closer and closer to this magical 100 episodes. So, I'm here with John tonight. How are you doing, John?
Excellent, Tim. And you?
Doing great. It's been a busy week. Lots of iPad news to talk about, and the main focus topic, as the title suggests, is iWork. It was recently updated with a pretty big update, so we're going to dive into later kind of what's missing still.
Yeah, that'll be great. Good improvements, but we don't have everything yet, so we'll talk about that.
Not everything, and it surprised me. Printing is still not in there for the 4.2 folks. Thought they would have snuck that in. But yep. The first story is one that I saw on Twitter, and this should go in the genre of I really disagree, and I believe this person has read about the iPad but hasn't really used it on the day-to-day. Hasn't used it as a personal device yet, and it's from the Tech Republic. It's the truth about the iPad. It's only good for two things. And here are the two things, he says. Reading and viewing, so a consumption device, and then multi-touch interaction. So he's saying, why would you ever get an iPad if a laptop does everything the iPad does? And from reading this, it doesn't make me feel that he understands that it is a different device and it does different things well. And it can do more than reading and viewing, and it... did you get a chance to read this article? It was another one of those that.
Yeah, I keep reading these things, and I know that these people have iPads. I mean, they're using iPads, but for them it just doesn't work, and so then they they insist on writing to tell the world that what they think is the truth is the absolute truth. And it's like it's a not every laptop. I mean, if everybody wanted the same laptop, there would be one or two companies selling the exact same laptop, right? They don't sell the same laptop because people have different needs and different wants. And for some people, the iPad is a great device. I think I've mentioned it before. I've in the past been involved with this National Novel Writing Month that comes up in November.
Yep.
And I was out on their website earlier this weekend and kind of getting ready for that November thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I wonder how many of these folks have looked for software for the iPad to maybe write their novel in November. And so I was searching through some of the boards, the message boards there, and there was this long string of comments about whether the iPad was a good tool, and it had started before the iPad was shipping, and of course people were like saying, oh, I think it might be good, oh, it'll be awful, it'll be no good, like everything happened before it was shipping. And looking at the ones after the fact, there's still these people that are saying, oh, it's no good whatsoever, and these people I don't even think had an iPad. And then it was interesting to see some of the last, which were from people who had iPads. A lot of them were posted, they said, from their iPad, and that their laptops are now gathering dust while they use their iPad for everything. So, it's to each his own. For some people it's great, for other people it's not.
Yeah. And yeah, I get annoyed when people just go on their soapbox. I guess I go on my soapbox a lot too, so I don't know. But yeah, well, I just saw that on Twitter.
There's two things about being on a soapbox. One thing is you can be really enthusiastic about something and get on your soapbox and say, for me, this is great, this is wonderful. And it's something else to be on the negative soapbox and saying, oh, it's awful for everybody, and
Right.
it's just like that's not the way. It's really, speak from personal experience, and if you want to say it's not right for you, then just say that, but don't say it's not right for everybody.
Yeah, stay away. This isn't right for me because, the next. Let's move on to the next story, and we're just gonna gloss over the next one because it turns out the AT&T guy got misquoted, or not misquoted, but he was quoted that there's 500,000 iPads on the 3G network for AT&T, and that was a quote from a long time ago when it was just launched or whatever. So that came up in the news this week, but I'm sure there's probably millions of iPads on the AT&T network by now.
Well, certainly a lot of them.
Yep. And so we're just gonna gloss over that because that's old news. So the next one is iPad. Unsurprisingly has a good customer satisfaction rating, and it's driving up Apple as a whole for their personal computer surveys. Basically, it makes Apple once again even higher than before. So they're at, I'm looking at the stats here. It looks like 86 versus 77 for the other highest competitors, Acer and Dell and all those guys.
Yeah, looks about that.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm not sure there's too much to talk about with that one.
No, it's it kind of speaks for itself, but Apple remains high in customer satisfaction, and that's good. Shows they're caring about their customers.
Yep. And was this next story, did you throw this one in here about the white iPhone?
Yeah, so this website iClarified, which I have no idea how reliable they are, but they have posted a picture from Walmart that shows it's a one of their Walmart displays, and it shows iPhone 4 white 16 gigabyte with 2-year service contract, $197. So it's certainly saying there's a white iPhone on the way. So
my thoughts here, misprint. No,
could way. Be. Yeah, could
Walmart's
be.
Walmart's not gonna be the first to get a white iPhone.
No, I wouldn't. But they might be the first to make a mistake and show.
Sure. I think we're at least a month or two away from white iPhone.
Yep. Yep.
So the next one has me intrigued. So this next story, it's about Apple basically coming up with technologies to shrink the headphone jacks to basically enable products to be even thinner than they are now. Is that basically how it appears by this story here, this patent?
Yeah, there was a number of patents that came out, and you gotta take them with a grain of salt, because the patent is just saying somebody's come up with this good idea. So we'll have to see where that goes, but certainly they're driving toward smaller and smaller things.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that now that the iPod Touch is so thin, they need to make it thinner, so they need the headphone jack to be smaller. The next iPad, it's thin right now, but if they can make it thinner, they'll do it.
Right.
So
I don't know if you got a chance to see this one, Tim, which is an interesting one, because
the dual docks.
No, it's
okay.
It's a product review of a new stylus called Alu Pen, or like aluminum pen.
No.
And it's so it's a review on App Advice,
mm-hmm.
and it says it's pretty good for the iPad. It's maybe a little too big for the iPhone, but I know you've been up on the Dagi stylus and the Pogo.
I've been collecting all the styluses,
so I thought you might be interested in this. It looks like essentially like if you think of the old yellow pencils, it's that 6-sided pencil kind of shape with like a rubber point at the end, or a rubber dome, because it doesn't come to point, but so it looks like it might be fairly comfortable for people used to using, other devices, other styli. So
okay, cool. And the next one I forgot to throw in the show notes, I think, but there's also a patent that it might have been old, but it shows a picture of an iPad with 2 dock connectors. Basically, the concept here, we can dock it horizontally or vertically, which I would love. I would personally love to see that happen because there's countless times I'd love to use the keyboard docked, horizontally.
Right.
Do you think this is just one of the very early prototype designs that will never see the light of day?
I don't know. I've been kind of curious about why the dock connector is at the end, on the narrow end instead of the wide end, particularly since the screen is obviously oriented to be in more of a landscape mode than a portrait. If you ever look at it, I think I've mentioned this before. If you look at it with polarized glasses, the iPhone is very much a portrait kind of device. With the home button could be up at the top or the bottom, but essentially it's very much a portrait device to be able to view the screen with polarization. And the iPad is very much different. It is very much a landscape kind of device to be able to view it with polarized glasses. So I always wondered why they have that orientation to the screen, but yet they, have the dock connector at one side. I don't know whether it was just because
It's by the home button.
Yeah, by the home button, and it made more sense to have the home button on the side. But I think the usefulness of having 2 dock connectors would be very good. And I wonder if they'll actually put in circuitry to be able to use both of them simultaneously. Maybe one you could use with camera connection kit on one and the dock connector on another. So anyway, but yeah, I think that would be a cool thing to have.
My one thought as to why this would never come in existence is looking at the picture, it kind of looks ugly having that second one there. Do you see that at all?
Yeah, I guess, and Apple's all about the not being ugly, but
it'll be covered by a case most likely.
Yeah, but they don't care about a case. They care about the beauty of the device
itself. Pull it out of their jacket and.
But I don't know how ugly it looks with a dock connector, particularly since you're turning it sideways most of the time anyway, so the current dock connector sticks out there for everybody to see.
That's true. Yeah, the Apple could make it pretty,
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so the next one here, let's see. It's about did we talk about PlayOn last week, or was that a different company that's doing streaming services?
I think you mentioned PlayOn.
Okay,
that was
so
the one for the PC. Yeah.
The next one, Netflix evidently in the coming months is going to have streaming only options in the United States, just as Canada. There's a blog post on Netflix's main site by Reed Hastings, and he just shortly comments that, the next few months we'll just have streaming only options in the United States. Right now, we can do that for, I think, $5 a month for, was it 2 hours of streaming and then 1 DVD or something? But anyways, I think streaming only options would be great for, a lot of users.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are a lot of folks that pretty much just use streaming. I mean, I'm on the 1 DVD at a time, and I don't send that in very often. I forget about it after I've watched it. So streaming is certainly what I use more. But another thing I don't know if you saw, but Netflix just a day or two ago announced that they're getting a bunch of titles from TV shows from NBC and from USA and Sci-Fi. So
Very cool.
They're definitely increasing, working hard to increase their offerings there for streaming.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter a couple minutes ago about the NBC stuff going there. And they already they've got some shows. They've got like The Office, I believe, and some of the newer ones. But it'd be cool if you had like the whole West Wing series, or wasn't Seinfeld on NBC?
Yeah, I think it was.
That'd be cool if all of those were on
there.
Yeah.
Well, they do have, SNL, all 35 seasons of SNL are supposed to be on there. So
oh, wow.
I'm sure those will get plenty of viewing.
Yeah, I know Hulu Plus has a couple of the seasons of SNL, and it's got some of the first season ones.
Yep.
So let's move from there to just a crazy story, or crazy, not crazy, but kind of cool. On Apple's site, if you go to apple.com/iPad/Pompeii, you'll find a website that Apple's created showing some scientists using the iPad in Pompeii for excavating, archaeological sites and documenting their work. And they're saying it's better than paper. It's basically a paper replacement for what they're doing here. And they're able to take photos and use the camera connection kit to import it in there. And the apps they feature on this site are Pages, FM Touch, which is FileMaker to go for the iPhone and iPad, iDraw, OmniGraffle, and the built-in Photos app. So that's kind of cool. Did you check this out yet?
No, I haven't, but that sounds like an interesting article to read. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Apple's doing more of this on their website type stories like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how you would find this if, I guess Apple links to it elsewhere.
Yeah, I've seen stories certainly for the Macintosh and the iPhone. So I think it's something that they often do, but it gets kind of buried in their site. So
yeah,
you have to kind of look around for it.
And if you go to apple.com/iPad/business, there's iPad in Business. There's a whole website devoted to using your iPad in business. It's kind of cool. So I like this. I like Apple kind of showcasing, hey, you can use this in different scenarios that you wouldn't think are typical. So
yeah, I mean the real story is that the Apple devices all across the board are used in all kinds of things, just like PC devices are. So just you're not locked out of anything in a particular field of endeavor with an Apple device. So it's a good story to tell.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one you put in here, and I'm happy you did because I almost skipped it, and that is our beloved Newtons are finally running emulated on the iOS, iPad included, and I can't wait to install Newton on my jailbroken iPad, but I'm not finding a way to do it yet. So can you kind of run over the story for me?
Yeah, so this is another one from App Advice, if anybody's interested. So they have a little video that shows the Newton being run on an iPhone, and it's a live little thing where they're actually in the appointment diary and playing around with it. So it's really quick. It's relatively slow, but the gentleman says that they're working on making it faster. This is really the Einstein platform, which has been around for, I don't know, probably 7 years, I would guess. Was originally written for Mac OS as a port of the Newton. And, that's fine and dandy, but the Mac OS, a laptop is not as friendly to using a touch interface, Newton interface, as certainly the iPhone or potentially the iPad. So the code is available and some build instructions. I think that you need to be a developer, and have Xcode in order to put it together and get it loaded up. But apparently it's been submitted to the App Store, but we don't know if it'll be approved or not.
I would love for that to get approved. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So so you don't need a jailbroken thing. You just need to be a developer.
I wish they would put that in Cydia or Cydia.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take a look at it, see if I can build it. And,
if you're able to build it, let me know, because I'm not sure if I have the technical knowledge to do that.
Yeah, I think it should be fairly straightforward, but I'll take a look at it.
It's kind of funny. I'm holding the Message Pad 2100, and it feels like about the same size as the Galaxy Tab. As far as, I don't know, it feels like it could be that size.
Yeah, it might be. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'll love to see this if this runs on the iPad. At least in doubled mode or something.
Yeah, because that'd be
because it's pretty
for me,
small.
That'd be so much more useful than. I mean, that would replace a lot of the note-taking apps I'd have. I just run the Newton to take notes. I mean,
yeah, or and to keep appointments and stuff like that. It would be a cool thing to have. So I'm gonna give it a whirl this next week and see if I can find some time to get it up and running, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I got a random quote of the week, and this one comes from someone I know, someone a little bit older, and I asked her why do you still pay for the paper, and her response is, it's almost a charity. I feel there's a place for paper media, and it's kind of sad. It's like okay, I don't know. Is this a weird random quote that I think just shows what the older generation feels about paper media and how younger generation, people like myself just don't care. News is news.
Yeah.
So, let's move on. The app. You don't have any soft spots for the paper newspaper, do you, John?
No, I don't. I never really got into that. Sitting and sipping your coffee or your tea and reading the paper. I mean, I certainly did it a few times, but I specifically noted where I was working when I got the iPad that I had done work for this company a few times over say the past 10, 15 years, and I remember some time ago that you used to go into the lunchroom and, there'd be all these paper newspapers sitting on tables. And if you got your coffee or your sweet roll or whatever and sat down and you could pick up a paper and browse through it. And in recent times, in this last go around when I was there earlier in the year, there weren't many papers sitting around, and so didn't have that ability. But then when I got the iPad, it was like, oh, well, now I can read whatever I want, not just what happened to be on the newspaper on the table where I sat down.
Exactly.
And I'm certainly an electronic news reader, not a paper news reader.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the app updates of the week, and there's two. Just app thoughts of the week. So there's two. Pad Racer. And the reason why I talk about this is I'm confused as how they're versioning and calling these apps. So when you launch the app, it's let's see. How should I describe it? In the App Store, when you update the app, Pad Racer, it calls it version 6.0. When you launch the app, the main screen says version 4. And then in the app itself afterwards, it says released 5. So it's totally confusing as far as which version is, but it's a good update. It adds some new apps, and it's a cool little app. It enables you to basically turn the iPad into a board to control cars that you can steer around and things like that.
Cool. So
yeah,
it's a good release no matter what its number.
Yeah. I hope they fix that soon. I should probably contact them about that.
Yeah,
but, it's a cool app. I'll do a full review later on. I'm still getting the problem is I'm still trying to learn how to control the car so it's not embarrassing when I play it. So, my generation. We talked about it last week. The Sync app. And did you try this out?
No, I did not. I meant to, but never got around to recording or watching the show. So
I tried it. It just did not work at all. So I didn't watch it live. I watched it through the ABC Viewer app and on the iPad. And then I used the other iPad to launch up the Sync app. And it just could not sync the audio. It could not find where it was in the TV show. I even went as so far as putting the mic directly against the speaker on the other iPad. And completely silent all around it, and it just couldn't find anything. So I hope they get this working because I think it would be kind of cool, but it was a total fail, so it was disappointing.
Oh, that's too bad. It certainly sounds like an an interesting kind of use of technology there. But
And just FYI, it's not a show I will ever watch again. I didn't like it. It was a mockumentary, and some of those you can do good, but that one I just didn't. I didn't like it at all. It was kind of. They basically took these group of people from high school, then 10 years later, see what they're at. And I didn't like it because they kept on running in the people from high school, and that would never have happened in real life. So it was a really bad mockumentary.
yeah,
So,
because unless you live in a really small town.
yeah. So let's move on before the big iWork section here. I got some listener feedback about the iPad and the camera. So here's some thoughts here. I'm just going to read the email really quickly here. With Apple pushing FaceTime on the iPhone and iPod Touch, I'm wondering why no one is talking about the possibility of a dock-mounted swiveling camera accessory for the iPad. This camera can function as both a rear and forward-facing camera as well as all the angles in between. For a larger, heavier device like the iPad, it seems like a dock-mounted swiveling camera makes a lot more sense for FaceTime, video, and photos. They can make the camera at least as good as the iPhone 4's rear camera, and thus your FaceTime would be even higher quality than it is now. Also, the same device could be used on the iPhone 4 and especially on the iPod Touch to bring all three devices the same photo, video, and FaceTime quality, and thus increase its demand that much more. This would allow the iPad to continue to be sold at lower prices and also to institutions that may frown upon cameras being on their devices. Since the iPad will be used more and more in the classroom, we don't want to encourage little Johnny from taking bad photos, I'm not going to go in the but notice that the iPad can already be used upside down, which is exactly what you would need for such a device to be useful. So with this one accessory, we would reduce costs for functionality that someone may not want or need, allow them to have it if they choose, and provide Apple with yet another revenue stream. So I've thought about this in the past, and
Yeah, I think we've actually talked previously about the potential of a camera hooked to the connector.
yeah, I'm still not sure if they would ever do this.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I don't think Apple would ever bring it out. I think it'd be great if they let some third party bring it out as an accessory that worked.
Yeah, they could call it. They could just. It'd be classic Apple. They bring back the iSight camera for iOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I don't see them doing that. They like the all-in-one solutions.
Yeah. So it's not as elegant,
It's not. And
but
the idea about bringing image quality to parallel on all devices, I don't think Apple cares about that. I really don't.
No, I don't know that anybody necessarily cares about that, really.
And I FaceTimed on the iPod Touch 4. It looks great. I don't think there's a problem with, especially video. With the video looks great. It's the photos that you need to worry about, which, Apple doesn't care as much on the iPod Touch. They're going to that's what you get.
Right.
So, yeah. It is kind of an interesting question as far as video quality and photo quality. If the iPad got a camera, would it be more like an iPhone 4 camera? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's some good thoughts. And, yeah, we talked about this in the past, and I think we'll just be waiting for iPad 2 in April, and we'll get a camera on that guy. And one more thought here is, so I've heard John Gruber talk about the Retina display and how that would not be feasible on iPad 2. And I'm not sure if he's right. I'm trying to think here. Basically the concept is you have double pixels from the iPad you have now on the same amount of space. And do you think with Apple manufacturing the iPod Touch and the iPhone for a year, is learning how to do it good enough for them to get the cost down? Or is it an actual component cost for this Retina display?
Well, typically with new technology like that, it's really component cost initially, and with anything, I could see the point that they may not have the ability to manufacture this fine of a of a pixel count in large enough sizes yet to fit the iPad. If you kind of try to draw some parallels with regular LCD screens, or maybe camera sensors are another thing to look at when you're trying to put discrete components at a very high density in a larger form factor. You need to make your machines handle that high density, and typically those machines are created to do smaller parts first, where they don't if they mess up, they don't cost a huge amount, because putting together the piece, if the piece is no good, the larger the piece, the more you've thrown away in cost. The same with silicon chips. I've been to one of the Intel manufacturing places, and they talk about how much the silicon costs, and so the larger the die, the price goes up, skyrockets. It's typically not a linear process. It's more of an exponential increase in costs, and so consequently, if you mess up on those larger things, you're wasting more and more money. So typically, you will see these things take a while to get larger and larger. And I mean, I don't think it's undoable now. It may not be doable in quantities that Apple would need to, produce, 1 million a month, or even 500,000 a month. It may not be producible yet.
Right. And the Retina display would be the one thing that would make me go out and buy iPad 2 tomorrow. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I if it had a camera, I probably would think about it, just because I have found myself quite a few times having to transfer photos from the iPhone to the iPad, because that's really where I want them to be able to look at them and edit them. But it's certainly not something that I absolutely need. And
yeah,
so,
that's why I bought the iPod Touch 4. It's got cameras on it, so.
Yeah, but the Retina display would certainly be a killer feature to have that. I mean, the screen looks great as it is, but it would be all that much better with the Retina display.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move away from that and move on to the big section of the day, and that is iWork, the big update here. So that's how we're going to do. We're just going to go app by app. We're going to start with what they added and then go to what's still needed. So was it iWork 1.1 or 1.2? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I guess it doesn't matter. Just go out to App Store and download the app. So
yeah, get the newest one.
Yeah. So the first app, Keynote. They've added export presentations to Microsoft PowerPoint format, copy presentations between Keynote and your mobile iDisk or WebDAV service, support for audio in builds and importing Keynote 09 presentations, ability to group and ungroup objects, added animated builds to grouped objects, lens flare, spin, and wipe build animations, revolving door, swoosh, and wipe slides transmission animations. So that's what was added. And the big shocker to me is I thought, naively, that the iPad already exported to the Office formats. I thought that was already built in. I guess it wasn't.
Well, I think it was for Word or Pages to Word. I think that was built in. But yeah, the Keynote would read PowerPoint but not put out PowerPoint.
Yeah, I thought it did. So that was kind of cool that they added that finally.
Yeah, it certainly is helps a great deal. I actually have a little story to tell in that I had an opportunity to visit a client this week, and I had to do a little presentation, which was created in PowerPoint, and I put it on the iPad, and I ended up, the two of us were sitting, next to each other at a table, and I played it on my iPad, and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Now I must say that the first time that I tried Keynote on the iPad with a PowerPoint presentation, it was a disaster because it didn't import very well, and I had slides that had a white background with black lettering, and for some reason the white background didn't show up, so I had black text on a black background.
Man. See, I just wish Apple would create Keynote for Windows, and then Keynote would be the go-to app for every single user in the world, and we wouldn't have this problem.
Very true. Very true. Although, even some Keynote things from the Mac have not come across well in
That's true.
earlier versions of Keynote. True. But I think they've fixed that. I feel that they've fixed a lot of that. So it remains to be seen, what's missing here. But
before we dive into the Keynote special features, what was added to the entire suite is this Mobile Me integration with your iDisk. Ability to copy presentations down to Keynote or any of the iWork apps and copy it back up. Is this a good solution? I'm thinking it's not what we're wanting. Right, it still has the multiple file version problem, doesn't it?
Well, I think you get that in a lot of cases. I mean, you can put stuff up on iDisk and move it back down. Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a syncing nightmare that we've had for many years with different things. It's not the most elegant solution, but it's much better than it was.
It is.
So
I wish Dropbox was in that list of things you could copy it to.
Yeah, I was going to say that because you can certainly get the presentation from Dropbox. Mm-hmm. And launch it in Keynote as it is right now. But what you can't do is get it back out to Dropbox if you make any changes, and so that's kind of one of the missing pieces. They do have the WebDAV service, which is an advantage, and there are some apps in the App Store that allow you to easily hook to a WebDAV service, and so you could, similar to Dropbox, you could be using a WebDAV service to store things and launch them from within these other apps into Keynote, and then use Keynote to write it back out there. I actually have found one thing. It doesn't resolve the syncing problem completely, but it helps a great deal, and that is and I'm trying to recall its name here, so you have to bear with me for just a second. There's a service where you can email into Dropbox.
Really?
And so from Keynote or any of these other things, you can actually send a file in email to your Dropbox account.
That's handy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will let's continue on, and I will find the name of it.
Basically, the new interface for all the iWork apps is on the loading screen, where you just select which presentation or document you want to do. You have this export arrow, which allows you to email presentations or documents, share via iWork.com, send to iTunes, copy to iDisk, or copy to WebDAV. And then you have this little, basically a Dropbox looking icon thing where you have an arrow pointing to this little box, so you drop stuff in your box. So copying stuff, so you copy from iTunes, copy from iDisk, and copy from WebDAV. And the copy from iTunes thing's weird. When you hit it, it loads a little window here, and right now it says no presentations available to copy. I'm guessing how this works is you sync stuff via file sharing, and then after you sync it, you have to do the copy from iTunes, and it finds the files in there to import into iWork. Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, I could not tell you because I haven't done much with iWorks.com, just because I haven't found the need to. But
it's just for the iTunes stuff.
Oh, just for the iTunes stuff.
It seems like Apple's overcomplicated the syncing even more.
Yeah.
Are you able to open up Keynote or Word or whatever? I mean, Pages.
Yeah, let me do that here just a
Okay,
second.
but when you launch it, it's got this little Dropbox here, and when you hit copy from iTunes, it seems like you have to have another step even after you sunk the content down to your iPad to copy it over to your iPad. You see that?
Well, I think what you need to do is be connected,
Okay.
right? Right.
Yeah.
So if you're connected, you should see, a list of files that you previously had used to sync. I think. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess what this is if you've used iTunes to sync things before, and then for some reason you've gotten rid of them on your iPad.
Oh.
This is a way of grabbing them back through the iPad interface.
Gotcha. That makes more sense. Yeah, I was wondering about that. It seems that I don't know, it just seemed overly complicated. So, yeah, let's go in the Keynote now. That's kind of what was added to the main apps. The Dropbox, or not the iDisk stuff was added to all the apps. So, do you use Keynote or PowerPoint much in your daily life? What's still missing here?
Well, one thing that's missing, and I must admit I haven't tried this since I got the update on there, so I don't know if they changed anything, but they certainly didn't list changing anything. But the whole using the video out and presenting on another screen is kind of rudimentary, I think, in Keynote today. It's not as robust as it is on the Mac version, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be. So I think that they need to look at using the iPad as that personal monitor where you're projecting, or putting it out on another screen, and giving you more functionality there, like you get on the Mac version of Keynote. And then, as we mentioned, the ability to read and write to Dropbox. There's pluses and minuses there, obviously, because if you're not connected to the internet, you can't get to Dropbox, so you won't have any of your documents. But on the other hand, it would help get rid of that syncing issue.
Yeah, it sure would. So, I think they've had a lot of great stuff in here. I think they've had a lot of great things in here.
Yeah.
And my guess is, I'm thinking we just I think the font problem still hasn't been answered here in Keynote. A lot of heavy Keynote users have special fonts that they really want to use. And for whatever reason, even if they copy it from the Mac, it downgrades the fonts. I don't understand why the fonts couldn't go along with a Keynote file. Like, the Keynote file itself would contain some fonts to be used on any system.
Yeah, kind of like a PDF can embed fonts or parts of fonts. Definitely.
So that's a big one, I think, still missing. And then, just adding more, more of the animations, more of the templates and all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, is there anything else I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are probably the big ones.
So, let's move on to numbers now. Numbers is the Excel, sort of. It's kind of the pretty Excel. You get to do more things than just spreadsheets. So, they've added exporting to Microsoft Excel format, the XLS format. And I do love how they're not embracing this crazy XLS X or whatever with, the latest versions of Word and whatever. They have these crazy new formats that they put out every time, and Apple's not worrying about trying to save to those.
Well, I would actually have to disagree that those formats seem to be more universal, and so I wish they did support those formats as well as the regular formats.
Are they more universal now? They just seem like an annoyance whenever I get those.
No, they've been around long enough now, and because Microsoft provided updates and converters into earlier versions of Office, on both platforms, that it's really, I think, the accepted formats these days. So in one sense, the iPad is being left in the dust, being left
Yeah.
behind in that regard.
Yeah. You can still open them though.
Yeah, it's much better now.
So I don't use numbers a bunch. I used it a little bit. Some other abilities they've added here is the ability to copy, group, and ability to group and ungroup objects, and a cool ability to open CSV files from mail and other apps, which is that's a big one I think. 'Cause a lot of files are sent to you via that format, and it's good that numbers can now open that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's certainly an important thing to have that ability, and it's kind of makes you wonder why it wasn't there from the beginning, because that's such an open and commonly used format.
Right. And do you see any big ones that are missing from this list of things you'd like to see? It seems this one got the, I guess, the lightest update.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty capable to begin with. The one thing I would say about numbers, because I have been using it a bit in the last couple of weeks on the iPad, is it seems a little less intuitive than it should be. It seems when I use numbers on the Mac, it is much more straightforward, and I kind of have to poke around a bit more and try to figure out how to do some things on the iPad that just are not. And
give some examples.
I don't off the top of my head. I mean, certainly they've done some things well, but one thing was it seems really difficult to deal with formulas that you're trying to repeat and edit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think it comes down to the finger being a less precise pointing device than the mouse is at times. And so I don't know if you've dealt with the fact that sometimes you've got a series of different things in columns, but yet for some reason you want to do calculations on them that are based upon rows, and so you can't just have the spreadsheet do the automatic of increment when you copy an equation from one cell to another, which it wants to do. You actually need to go in there and edit that equation for each instance, because it's not going to copy the right thing. And when you try to go in and try to edit the individual, I just want to change the letter, not the number, just the letter, or something like that, it becomes very difficult, just because of the way you have to point with your finger and use the on-screen keyboard. And I ended up having to retype all these formulas that on the Mac I would have just pointed, clicked right next to the letter I wanted to do a backspace and type in the new letter and go to the next line and do the same thing. So it was rather tedious, and I think it just needs a little bit more of the Apple magic touch to figure out how to make that interface work a little bit better, for things like intricate single letter changes and things like that.
I kind of wish Apple in their iWork apps would open up the arrow keys on the. Are those available to use, the arrow keys and tab keys to navigate?
They are not, and
They should add that.
I think you're right. I think that would go a long way to fixing this problem.
Yeah, I definitely agree. 'Cause I know the tab key works in Pages and stuff, but they should add that to work in numbers.
Yeah,
I don't think it does.
No, I don't. Yeah. So, I think that what they've added here is all good. I think
incremental.
Yeah, I think they should really just kind of go back and see how they can make it work a little smoother.
Yeah. It's got me wondering what the 2.0 update will look like, because they're already pretty advanced. I'm just wondering what they'll do with that, and if that will be Apple's way of introducing how this paid upgrade works. If when the iWork 2.0 apps come out, with OS 5, they'll demo how you can pay for upgrades now or something.
Yeah, good question.
So, yeah, we'll see. The last app is Pages, and the Pages special features are we now finally have an option to display the word count for our documents, that's a big one because before you get into other ones, when you're writing a paper in school, you're often required to write a certain number of words, and it was obnoxious writing a paper without knowing that word count back in college. So that's a big one.
Yeah, and for all kinds of writing, like for this novel writing contest, you're trying to keep track of how much progress you've made on a daily basis, and without a word count, that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, and to turn it on, it's pretty simple. So once you open up the file or whatever, you just go into, I think it's the little iron little thing there, and just say word count on, and at the very bottom it'll just update with your new word count. So it's pretty cool. The next one seems like a no-brainer, just like the CVS and numbers is you can now open .txt files from mail. So just simple text files you can finally open in Pages, which is fantastic. And let's see, the other ones similar to numbers, we have the ability to group and ungroup objects, the ability to import and export existing footnotes, endnotes, sections, and tables of contents. And the final one, import and export Pages 09 tables with image, background, fills, and cells. So some big ones here. Footnotes and endnotes. So this means you can actually import those and export existing ones. That makes me wonder, when are we finally going to add the ability to add your own from within?
Yeah, that's it. That's the important part too.
Yeah. It's great that they can be in there, but let's add some new ones. So I think that's got to be number one, right? Footnotes, add your own. That's
right.
That's probably the biggest one missing still right now.
Yeah, the other thing is for a lot of people is really tracking changes. And I understand that that's going to be a difficult thing,
especially when you're not dealing with the same version on these the way Apple deals with this.
Yeah, but I think once they add that, they'll get a huge number of converts to Pages, because I know the legal community needs to be able to track those changes, and so. Yeah,
definitely. And the ability to import the image background fills and cells is pretty big, because basically they've added, I think the biggest update here with Pages 09 is they're basically adding support for making Pages on the Mac, those files work just like they do on the Mac on the iPad. So that's what Pages does with this update. Is that what you're seeing here as well?
Yeah. It's a good update. They need to go a little further, but it's definitely a good update.
Yeah. And so we've been talking about the ability to group and ungroup objects. I don't want to be naive. I'm trying to figure out what these objects are. So I'm dragging in these new things. What are objects?
So there are little shapes and things that you can put into Pages. One thing I would say is that although they've done some things with helping with tables, I think they need to go more. I want Pages to be what numbers really can't be. I mean, when Apple first introduced numbers on the Mac, the great thing about numbers was that here you could really do what people used spreadsheets for, but in a very elegant way. So, if you look at examples of good numbers spreadsheets, you'll see that, there's some text on there. There's a little table at the top, a little table at the bottom, whatever. But, it's very good looking mix of text and tables, which is what people really need more than just a straight spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. Well, what we're seeing with numbers on the iPad, at least my personal experience is that it is not as easy to do that in numbers on the iPad. However, I think tables in Pages could be that.
Yeah.
And so, but what they need to do is they need to work a little bit more on what tables will do and provide maybe some of that more numeric functionality within those tables in Pages. I'd love to see numbers and Pages meld together into one application on the iPad, because I think that's really what people would like to see, is a very useful application that you can just be your go-to application.
Yeah. So, just final thoughts about iWork on the iPad? I think we kind of covered the death a little bit here, but some great updates here, and I'm looking forward for more and more people using this in college and other things like that.
Yeah, I think it's like many things that Apple does, it's evolving, and so I think we will see more and more people using these products. They're a great price, and they are providing great functionality and making the iPad that content creation device that so many people think it can't be.
Yep, absolutely. So, without further ado, let's get on to the picks of the week. And do you have one ready, or do you want me to jump in here? Because I've got one I'm very excited about.
Well, if you were excited about it, go for it, Tim.
Okay. Well, the first one I saw on Twitter here, and it's called iFlux. And this is a flux capacitor.
Oh, I got that too.
Back to the Future. So I'm going to put in the video here. Let me move the camera around a little bit here. So here is basically, if you have a 3G iPad, this is what it's recommended for. This is a universal app, so it'll work on your iPhone as well. So you have this in the regular mode here, but when you flip it, you get to choose where you want to go. So just as in Back to the Future, you got your destination time, your present time, and the last time you departed. So I've got it set to destination time. That's a little off a little bit. But basically, you click on it, you're able to change it, whatever you want. So I tested this out on the road here. Now, sadly, it does not make your car, go back into the future, but I think it
only goes forward into the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, set it for another minute in front of you. But you're able to set the different. So right now it's at the 50, but you're able to set which speed it will go into the future here. So I set the 1, and I probably cannot get to go 1 mile an hour with me just sitting here. But basically, as you're in the car, it tracks how fast you're going with the GPS, and I found it really accurate as far as how fast it was tracking me. So once you reach your point of speed where it will, initiate the flux capacitor, it'll use part of your plutonium, as you see here, as you see there, and this little knob will go down, so you eventually have to reset it by clicking there. And, there we go. For some reason, and that's what happens there. So I guess I went over 1 for whatever reason. So when you reach the speed, it'll flash and initiate the flux capacitor. And it's just a really fun app. I don't know. It'd be fun for when you're on road trips, you just open this on your iPad and just, have fun with it. But that's iFlux. It's $1 in the App Store, and well worth the money to outfit your car with the flux capacitor. So you've played around with this one as well, John?
Just a little bit. I just downloaded it the other day, and it's just I saw that for $1, and I was like, gotta get it. So it's a cool little app.
So I've got another one. Do you want to do your first one, and I'll jump back in for mine?
Sure. So mine is PDF Notes for iPad. And PDF Notes is another attempt at that great PDF annotator that I've been looking for. This one is free. and it seems to work pretty well. I haven't used it a great deal yet, but it seems to do everything I want it to do. So it's lets you do writing with your finger, lets you do highlighting. You can sketch on the PDF pages, and seems to pretty much do it all pretty seamlessly and pretty intuitively. So, and for a free app, can't beat that. So PDF Notes.
PDF Notes, okay.
Yep.
Does it integrate with any online services to get files on and off the iPad, or is it? How does that work?
That's a good question. Let me check the library here. It's kind of got a library like iBooks does. And I don't see anything right off the top. I think you just have to add it through iTunes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably update in the future to add that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Well, my next one is Free Wi-Fi Finder. So this is a free app, as the name suggests, of a Wi-Fi finder. And I love the first page. I love the little touches here. So it would appear that you could just do this as a static page, but they've gone to lengths to have the little radar thing moving around. I think that's just, I don't know, that's cool. So this is a little thing. So find free public Wi-Fi. It launches up a map, and you don't need a connection, evidently, to use this app, as long as what's it? Okay, so you can install an offline database. So it'll take approximately 38 megabytes, and it's downloading now. And I should not have done that because now it's going to take the 38 megabytes to download, which it's doing pretty fast. But basically, it finds a free Wi-Fi around you, McDonald's, Starbucks, all those other places, and now it's saving, and now it's extracting. So it's pretty quick to get offline database. But basically, helps you find free Wi-Fi around you. So if you're a Wi-Fi iPad user, this will become incredibly useful to you. So I got a McDonald's here. You're able to get directions to it, bookmark it, or share it. And it's got the address there, map view, and just very helpful. There's a lot of, I'm just surrounded by free Wi-Fi. It's kind of cool. So that's Free Wi-Fi Finder, and it's free. It's one of the top 25 apps in the App Store now, and check it out. Any other picks for you, John? Are you finished with those for the night?
I kind of have an anti-pick.
I love anti-picks. App's not the get or buy.
Well, and I hate to do this, and maybe you had different experience than I have, but VLC Media Player.
I haven't loaded movies on yet. So.
I have tried to load a variety of things on it, and I'm obviously looking for things that are not MP4 that I know the iPad will play.
AVI
right?
files or whatever.
Yeah, and so I've loaded several things on there, and it thinks it's playing it, but the screen stays black. I'm like, this is not really useful to me to have a black screen. I don't know whether it's trying to go out to the through the connector to an external screen. I didn't see anything that allowed me to change it to be the internal screen, but
I'm hoping 1.1 will fix it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's initial release. It might be buggy. I don't know.
Yeah, if anybody out there in our listening audience has had success with the VLC Media Player, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, that's another one. It's like, it's on there. Let's get it working now.
Oh, you know what? I just read a note in iTunes about this. Okay. If you get a black screen, you're probably using iOS version 4.2 beta 1.
Oh, yes, that reminds me. Air Video does not work on 4.2.
Okay.
Which is not fun. So that's the
well, there's several other things about not fun about the beta, but
that's the only thing I found. It's like Air Video, no.
I'm so waiting for the next build of the beta because I'm so hoping that it fixes some of these things that I've had. I don't know how you have, but I've had all kinds of connectivity problems where
I've had no issues except for that stupid Air Video bug, so at least I got a spare.
Well, I'm on 3G, it's fine, but when I'm on Wi-Fi, half the time other certain apps will not think that it has Wi-Fi anymore, and I'll go to like Safari and it connects to the internet fine, but these other apps, no video, no connection to the internet, and I have to restart, and it's really annoying. So
yeah,
but
it's kind of cool though. I'm using the dock in a different way with the iPad with the folders. It's cool. You get all your video players from me are now on my dock. You know, it's wild because I actually have all my useful apps on the main screen now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are those features that make me seem willing to put up with the bugginess of the beta at this point.
Yeah.
I've thought a couple of times about, well, maybe I should go back.
Oh, John, I had a question. I know the iPhones have difficulties downgrading OSs. That's sort of why the iPad Wi-Fi model became my testing unit. Is the 3G model, does it upgrade the baseband or anything silly during the upgrade procedure?
You know, there's it doesn't really have the same kind of baseband. It may be called baseband, but I don't know if it does. I mean, it is a radio, so I guess it's some kind of baseband, but it doesn't have the voice baseband, which was always a problem with the iPhone. Is when you upgrade that, you can't easily downgrade that.
So it wasn't the data baseband? It's they were separated. Yeah,
I don't know that. As far as I know, and I will have to admit here publicly that I'm not well versed in this, but as far as I know, the software controlling the voice radios are separate from the data radios, and they I don't know that there was any reason to upgrade the baseband for the 3G data from 3.2 to to 4.2. So
yeah, I hope not, because that was always an issue. It's like I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. So I would imagine that we would have heard it, and it's really, I mean, one of the problems with it for you jailbreaking types on the iPhone was that if you wanted to go to like
the unlock,
you needed to be concerned about that, but the data on the iPad is not locked. Theoretically,
unlocked, so
theoretically not locked.
You can put it on European ones. It's the same one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so that's another thing I'm just happy about. But I'll be holding off the jailbreak or the 4.2 update on the 3G because I need the jailbreak features. At
this point in time, I kind of wish I still had my second iPad to be able to run one on each version.
Yeah, I knew in the back of my mind, it's like, that's an awesome reason to own two if you're a developer, just have one testing and one on the stable build. Yep.
Well, I'm suffering for my partners because they're staying away from the beta, and I'm using.
Well, you got to play with the new toys. That's fun. So, any closing thoughts before we wrap it up for the night?
No, I think I got everything off my chest.
Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, I'd love to hear feedback from everybody. Send in your email, send in your voicemails. You can do that by calling in the 209-542-iPad or email me at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts as far as iWork? Do you want to see, Office on the iPad? Whatever is on your mind. Whatever it is, just send it in. And from there, if you want to get more information about this podcast, just go to iPadPossibilities.com. And to support this podcast, just go to GadgetFreeway.com. They are sponsoring this podcast, and the biggest way to support this podcast is to support them. Go to GadgetFreeway.com, pick up your iPad pillow today. It's the way I use my iPad bed. I use it to watch videos more easily and to read books in bed and all sorts of things like that. It's also great for the playing, so you actually throw the iPad in there and kind of hide it, so, that's always a good thing. And then my favorite on their site, the iPad case bag, is my go-to bag when I'm out and about, and it basically turns your iPad into basically a satchel that you can just instantly have access to your iPad while it's in its bag at the same time. So that's why I call it the case bag, because you can use it as a bag and a case at the same time, and it's pretty amazing. So high build quality, all that stuff. I get comments from the Apple Store folks all the time when I go in with that. But anyways, just go to gadgetfreeway.com, support this podcast, and also get some pretty cool accessories for your iPad. So with that, this has been the iPad Possibilities Podcast on tppn.tv. This is Tim, and I'll talk to everyone again next time for the Thursday show later this week. Have a great iPad week.